Dee 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 doo dee 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 ding 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 doo. Hello, comic troopers. Welcome to the show. My name is Chris. You might know that if you've watched this show before, but hey, hopefully it's somebody's first time checking it out. I'll be your host. I'm Chris. And what is this show? We're going to talk about the whole week in terms of the comic book news and the actual comic books that came out. Actually, this one's not new. That's new to me. But there were some interesting new comics. Assorted Crisis events is interesting. I actually have things to say about this Predator versus Spider-Man. One of my favorites this week was definitely Absolute Wonder Woman. But anyway, there's some stuff to talk about. This one was just new to me. People have been telling me about it forever. I finally checked it out. Bitterroot is really something special. And there is some wild comic book news this week. Oh my God. A bunch of stuff. I was like, what do I do for my thumbnail? There's so many different directions I could go. Hopefully this one works and catches some new people. But welcome or welcome back. Either way, I'm still welcoming you. Let's do some shout outs to folks here in the chat. Yeah, I see some reactions to the thumbnail. Lovely to see you folks. This is very special to have viewers. I never take this for granted. Really helps make my evening easier because everybody in the chat is a little funnier than me and usually has some pretty good one-liners that I just get to repeat. Brunson, nice to see you. Oh, Jean, lovely. Jean is my sister, so it's always special to me when I know she's watching. This is awesome. Wow, thanks, folks. All right, we are gonna have a great show tonight. I cannot. Wow, all of a sudden, a bunch of chats just popped in. Awesome shirt. Yeah, I know that you like G.I. Joe, Kevin. I do too. Big fan. Yeah, very cool. Let's see. What do I have to say aside from what we're going to do tonight? Is there any business? I'm in the process of editing the latest comic Tropes. My personal goal is to get it out before the Thunderbolts movie comes out. It isn't specifically about Thunderbolts, but one of the characters that's in it is part of my video. So I should have that out in the next several days. Still got a few days of editing to go. Tomorrow on this channel, Jamie, Jim, and I will be putting out the latest trash movie Bonanza. Excited to share that with everybody. Jim and I going back to the whole reason we started the show, looking at some schlock horror that we both just happen to love and want to share with people. Yeah, buddy. Thank you very much for sending this, Steve. I got my last of what you sent for the sugar-free Baja Blast flavor Mountain Dew. I like it very, very much. Thank you very much for that. And I need it because I'll be honest. I'm starting to feel good now that I'm in show mode. It's sort of, I don't know, endorphins are firing or something close to that. But I'm definitely in some physical pain today, which has been very annoying. A headache, a knot in my back, my frozen shoulder has been returning, which, by the way, I looked into. Frozen shoulder, doctors don't know why people get it. It just happens, unfortunately, to some of us. Incredibly painful. But they say it's really unlikely to ever come back in the same shoulder. So who knows? Hey, Jim's here. Jimmy Jams, the special Paranoid Goo episode of Trash Movie Bonanza. That is a beautifully succinct way to talk about our episode, Jim. Yeah, I have the most fun doing that stuff. Let's see. Chris, switch from Mountain Dew to Dr. Pepper. Dr. Dew, Mountain Pepper. I'm going to drink some Mountain Pepper, actually. Not Secret of the Goo, Secret of the Goos. That sounds so dirty. Let's see. You can get it at your local Walmart. Awesome. I'll do that. I like it. I do. Tell you what, let's just get into the news because you guys have been patient enough listening to me ramble and prattle on. Oh, there's Can you believe this stuff? I mean, wow, what's going on here? It's over here, whatever. All right, we're going to start, though, talking about big business stamping down the little guy. We love those stories. Anyway, Warner Brothers won a big lawsuit against the Joe Shuster estate. I probably don't need to tell people watching this, but Joe Shuster, obviously one of the two gentlemen who co-created Superman, which really just, it cannot get discussed enough how big a deal Superman was and what it did for comics. But anyway, so Warren Peary is the nephew of Joe Shuster, and therefore one of the guys that controls the Shuster estate. And he was seeking an injunction against the release of Superman in several countries. So Warren claimed infringement of copyright laws in the UK, in Australia, in Canada, in Ireland, all English-speaking language countries, and some others. And he alleged that Warner Brothers lost its international rights to Superman many years ago, but continued to, as I wrote there, exploit them without permission or compensating the estate. So both tried to stop the upcoming Superman movie from coming out in those countries this July until, Warner Brothers either settles the lawsuit or he loses. Or I was going to say, it also related to some recent movies, movies that use Superman, like Black Adam or something like that. So, a pretty big potential lawsuit. That said, U.S. District Judge Jesse Furman on Thursday dismissed the lawsuit. He said that he doesn't have the authority over this case, that he's not able to make a ruling because the copyright infringement claims were brought under the laws of various foreign countries. I'm no legal expert. I'll just say that, the argument that the Joe Shuster estate was making related to some pretty old, I think even late 1800s, we're talking, laws regarding international copyright. And this U.S. district judge was like, that doesn't necessarily mean that we, the U.S., enforce those laws. So he just said that he didn't have authority. I don't know if that's true or not. You can always appeal, I suppose. But on Friday, instead, the lawsuit was refiled, this time in New York State Court. I don't think anything will, stop the release of this movie. It just might mean that the Shuster estate gets, another type of settlement. I really wouldn't know. Let's see. Dude's going to try to do this every time there's a new Superman movie. Fine with me, though. Fine with me. I mean, it's not like, in my opinion, I don't think that Siegel or Shuster ever got any sort of compensation, even retroactively, that really makes good on their creation and what Warner Brothers has made off of it. So I'm fine with the estate trying to get settlements every time. Fine with me. Grant Morrison is pleased about this news. I haven't followed. I don't know if they are invested in the lawsuit, maybe just creators' rights wise. And hey, we've got my buddy Dave saying that I'm Topher Tropes the Fourth. There we go. That one will catch. He's always trying to give me a nickname. None of them have stuck yet. If I were WB, I would pay the estate a teeny tiny fraction of my many billions of dollars. They have in the past, to be clear. They've made settlements. I want to say the last one they did, I think, was in the 90s. And the Shuster estate, it was like two people in it get $25,000 a year from Warner Brothers, which is a good amount of money, but is it really what Superman is worth? I don't know. You know, it's not like one day Warner Brothers should just, you know, get the rights free and clear and be happy and everything. No, I mean, this was the creation of two really, really clever young men. And, you know, they signed a deal because you never know what's going to hit. But certainly Superman is just one of the biggest things ever. Everybody knows Superman. Moving on, a little bit more DC news. The U.S. Mint struck the first comic medal. So the U.S. Mint struck this. It's called the Superman 1-ounce silver medal, and that's the first release in a new program that the U.S. Mint is doing, you know, to get people, I guess, interested in investment and then the economy and money and stuff like that. I mean, their whole deal is the U.S. Mint are the people that actually print and strike the currency that we use, and so that they've got a deal with Warner Brothers for Superman. So this debuts this summer, of course, the movie coming out. Superman is going to be on a series of coins. Some of them are going to be 24 karat gold, and some of them are almost pure silver, 0.999 fine silver metal. And they come with a certificate of authenticity. So it's a just a collector's item type idea. But, you know, there are still coin collectors out there, and I'm sure that coin collectors and comic collectors, if we created one of those Venn diagrams, there's got to be some overlap there. There's got to be. How long before it's common use? I don't know off the top of my head. 1938, and how long do they get? Like something like 110 years, something like that. So I think we've got like another 20 or so years. Keep it in the box so it's extra mint. There you go, Stepan. And then maybe even put a little piece of mint in there so that it's extra minty. That's what I do whenever I send something to the CGC, is I sprinkle a little bit of mint on my comic. The other day I had, you know, it was only a 1.5, but a 1.5 Detective Comics number 27. And so I sprinkled some mint on it, sent it to the CGC in hopes that they'd see it and go, this is mint. Give me back a 9.8. 95 years. 95 years. Well, Superman, if it was 1938, 95 years. So pretty soon, some of the elements will come into the public domain, although not the specific trademarked interpretation of them. So we'll see. There you go. Yeah, I know it's a dad joke. It's the best I can do right now. All right. Double mint. Oh, wait, that's Mentos. Whatever. Anyway, the heads up design here, I just give them credit to artists. Designed and sculpted by the Mint's chief engraver, a guy named Joseph Mena, depicts Superman flying over his family farm. Obviously, there's good, hearty American values there. And then the tail side is designed and sculpted by a guy named Joseph V. Norgien, I'm guessing. It shows young Clark Kent looking up to the sky, to his hopes and dreams. He's looking up to this jet. I guess it's worth $50 because they've got that like struck here. So anyway, I don't know if that's for you or not. It's kind of cool, though. I would like to see one in person. Moving on, I think I've got a bunch of Marvel news, right? Yeah, this one looked cool. I would love to see more of this. So I hope this is successful. A pencil-only edition of Wolverine Revenge. So Marvel just announced that they're going to release an uncolored version of Wolverine Revenge. That's what they call it. I saw some news articles call it pencil only. I saw the press release say uncolored. So that might mean inked. I don't know. I'd be interested in seeing the pencils. That would interest me the most, but I don't really know. That's part of why I brought it up. Anyway, they're calling it, and this just rolls off the tongue, Wolverine Revenge Red Band Raw Black and White Edition. nice simple title. Nice simple title. I know, but that is the cover too. So I didn't like they didn't show any interior pages in the press release. So I don't know. I imagine that it is going to be inked. I imagine it's going to be inked. Either way, that still shows a certain amount of detail and work that I think can occasionally get covered up by today's modern coloring standards. There's a lot of brilliant colorists out there, and I have no problem with a certain amount of rendering either. But I do think that sometimes even the palette, if it's just a little too dark, it's not quite that it can muddy the art, although it can. But sometimes it's so dark, you really do lose some of that fine detail that the original illustrator has put in there. So it's an interesting cooperation that we have in comics between, illustrator and colorist. The best collaborations showcase both art in a very satisfying way. Oh, okay. Well, Dave says Coppola posted it was pencils only. So that would interest me actually enough to potentially buy another copy. Because I did read this. It was fine. It was fun. The art was very good. It had some twists to it. It wasn't like what I'd call essential reading, but it was fun reading. There's a quote from Capullo. Returning to Marvel and all the characters that excited me as a kid filled my veins with fire. That fire was channeled through my pencil. I'm so glad a penciled version will be released so that fans see the heated energy in its original form. Heated energy. That reminds me of, remember when they decided, you know what Wolverine needs? Instead of claws that could cut through anything, what if his claws that can cut through everything were also on fire and he had like super hot claws for a little while? That just never seemed to add a whole lot to Wolverine's story. Zing! Rob with the Vince Coletta zing. I'm thinking specifically of two DC books in the last couple of years that I've seen pencils only. There was the Ash Can for Batman Hush that I shared with you guys, I guess about 1 month ago. And then a little further back, Mark Silvestri's Batman Joker Deadly Duo book always had several of the pages in black and white, his pencils in the back of each issue. And I just really liked how both of those looked without the colors. Hot Claws, hot book. Oh, the Hot Claws era. Lightsaber claws. That would be awesome. But his claws already cut through anything. So I don't know why you needed that. They did a few of the New 52 pencils only books. I honestly missed that completely. Wow. All right. See claws, buy claws, right? That's from Finn. See claws, buy claws. They also did noir editions of the first issues of Absolute Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. Well, then, it must be a case of the marketing totally went by me, because I will not look very closely at reprints or most variants. It just, because I'm not trying to collect all that stuff. But it does interest me. I like black and white comics a lot. I read a lot of manga. I came up in an era where some of the first comics that I was really getting into were Ninja Turtles, Usagi Yojimbo, The Tick, black and white stuff that I just absolutely love. Oh, there's the next step up. Hot Chainsaw Claws. Yeah. Hey, bub, you ain't getting out of this one. Sounds more like Popeye. Take my claws. Marvel is launching a Black Cat series. So they're launching this August 20th, they said. And the only details, this came from Bleeding Cool, were confirmed covers by Derek Chu, Ji Hyung, J. Scott Campbell, of course, Simone DeMeo, Terry Dodson, who actually has a lot of history with Black Cat, and Peach Momoko. I just found it interesting that this is coming out and ongoing for Black Cat just ahead of, next year's Spider-Man movie, the fourth Spider-Man movie. It makes me wonder, Sadie Sink was one of the announced cast members. Could she be playing Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat? I just see Marvel and DC launch a new series with characters that are in their movies a few months ahead of time to build up the interest. Or if they're already in that series, they kill them off right before the movie. And then, surprise, they're back to life by the time it comes to streaming and home video. We don't know. Meanwhile, another Marvel little press release thing is about Moon Knight's anniversary. So issue 10 of the current Moon Knight Fist of Khonshu is actually the character's legacy 250th issue. It's a lot of issues, honestly, for Moon Knight. I was a little surprised to see that number. I go, yeah, I guess so. He has been around for a while now, and if you add them all up, 250, more than I thought. Anyway, it's going to be double-sized and features this, a variant cover by his 90s artist, Stephen Platt. Anybody that was reading comics in the 90s probably would remember Stephen Platt, or as he signed his work, Splat. Platt became hugely popular so fast. He didn't even work on Moon Knight that long before Image grabbed him and he was doing stuff there. Let's see. Gleb Melnikov is rumored to be the artist for this, since he's posted some work in progresses of something involving Black Cat. That would make sense. I don't think she's ever had an ongoing. I don't know. I think it's always been miniseries. I don't think Black Cat's ever had an ongoing. Well, look at that. Yeah, ongoing for Marvel feels like it means 10 issues. That could be. Yeah. Platt was a meteoric ascension. It really was. It really was big. That cover looks awesome. Plus, the current book by Jed MacKay has been pretty awesome. Yeah, I know that Jed MacKay has been getting a lot of acclaim for his Moon Knight work for quite a while now. In fact, I have here that he's been the writer for the last 50 issues. So out of 250, yeah, that's a whole fifth, right? Yeah, 20% of Moon Knight comics have been written by Jed MacKay. That's pretty interesting. And he's going to introduce a new villain called Achilles Fairchild. That's, I guess, a good villain name. Marvel says it will wrap up the current arc, and that this issue will also be a good jumping on point for new readers. That is important. I'm something of a Moon Knight myself. Peter, did you know that the moon haunts you? No, I've never heard that. Maybe it's the new glasses or the fact that I'm growing my hair a little longer. I don't know. I've never heard that before. All right. That's sort of fair. Marvel starts a new #1 every time they change a letterer. Oh man, I wish I could go to Free Comic Book Day. Unfortunately, I'm working all day that day, so I'm not going to get to participate. I wanted to. Seattle also has a local horror convention this weekend, Crypticon, and I was like, it would be fun to do Free Comic Book Day and Crypticon, but unfortunately, gotta work. Hey, Sigma Comics. Shout out to Comic Tropes. Hey, that's me. Show Chris your support. Hit like, and also check out Calico, Morality Play on Kickstarter, featuring amazing art by Klaus Janson. Wow. Well, thank you very much for the super chat. I certainly hope you get $5 worth of attention on the book, because, yeah, Klaus Janson. Wow. Very, very cool. All right, moving on. We got more news. There's a Fantastic Four comic, and it's unique in the sense that it is supposed to be set within the film's universe. I'll explain. Marvel Comics and Marvel Studios working together for the first time, I believe, on a project. They're making a one-shot for a comic set within the world of the upcoming Fantastic Four First Steps movie. Whoops. Matt Fraction wrote this. It's got art by Mark Buckingham, and the cover art is by Phil Noto. Obviously, an homage of sorts to the original Jack Kirby cover. Different layout, but still involving fighting a monster. So I assume, yeah, their first adventure was with the Mole Man. The comic is fictionally published by the Future Foundation, and it authorizes a telling of the team's origin from 4 years prior to the events of the film. So it's like the team has published a book about their origin for the general public in the world of the movie. And this is set for release July 2nd, just ahead of the film. It's a unique promotional idea, and I like that we're sort of skipping past the origin for the Fantastic Four, since that has been done in movies technically 3 times before. They've had cartoons. Yeah, let's just get into more the meat and potatoes of how this family of scientists works. Yeah, Matt Fraction hasn't done anything at Marvel that I remember in recent years. And he's obviously been working more on TV stuff because he did that show Monarch. So but this is for both Marvel Studios and Marvel Comics. Explain the difference. I mean, it's like 2 different businesses that are owned by the same business above them. So Marvel Comics and Marvel Studios have completely different leadership and people and jobs and missions and stuff. They obviously have access to the same properties, and they both report to executives at Disney, but they operate independently. They may talk to each other for ideas and to know what's coming up, but they're separate. They're separate. Let's see. I wanted so badly to see the Mole Man and Monster Island in a live-action Fantastic Four movie. That would be a blast. That would absolutely be a blast. And I'll just say, never say never. I think that people love gigantic monsters these days. It's not just a you thing, Kevin. So I think that there's definitely a possibility of either a cameo in this, or if there's a sequel, maybe something more substantial with big monsters. I think that that's absolutely a possibility. Yeah, good team. Very good team. Talking about Matt Fraction's Adventure Man book that he does with the Dodsons. Yeah, looks beautiful. I've read a few of the issues. It's good pulp, sort of a little bit steampunk sci-fi adventuring. Yeah. Yeah, if I hadn't made that clear, that's what I'm trying to say, where their organization, the Future Foundation, is what's publishing it. So they've authorized. It's honestly very meta, because within Marvel Comics, specifically, you'll come across stuff like this in She-Hulk, and you used to in old issues of Fantastic Four. They always have said that in the 616 Marvel Comics continuity, Marvel also exists and is the company tasked with telling the true stories of the superheroes that live in their world. So yeah, let's see. That's not the only Fantastic Four news I've got. Didn't expect this one, but Fantastic Four is having a crossover with Gargoyles. Yeah. Dynamite's free comic book day book is Gargoyles Demona issue 0. And it's going to include a preview of an upcoming crossover event that they've got. So it's written by Gargoyles creator Greg Weisman, obviously has a lot of comic book experience. Art by George Cambadeus. He's drawn all sorts of stuff for both, I think, Gargoyles and Dynamite. And it's got both, it's a story of 2 New York-based families, essentially. And they're going to have to team up together against a group of villains from both of them, but it will include Annihilus and the Negative Zone. So I think that could be a lot of fun. I don't know a whole lot about Gargoyles, though, to be honest. I had Greg Wiseman on the show, this show in the past, and we talked a bit about it, but I don't know a lot. It was on when I was in college, so it's a blind spot for me. But I'm sure that like how could you not, for instance, use, and I don't know, but like the Gray Gargoyle, for instance, he should show up in this. That's a good Marvel villain to just have, at least in passing. Yeah, that's true. That's the level of how important comics are within Marvel. Captain America is canonically an illustrator as Steve Rogers. That's his day job, and he did at one point draw for Marvel, but not for long because he was kind of always late because of adventures. You've been reading the latest batch. Do you like them? Are they good? Gargoyles is a Disney property. In this case, it's licensed. Dynamite licenses a bunch of stuff from Disney, and Gargoyles is one of them. Yeah. But I'm sure that helped in a way that they would, like, with a crossover idea, they were like, oh, like, yeah, we own both these properties. That sounds like, we're cool with them meeting each other. They are good, better than expected. It's nice to hear. The Gargoyle books are very good. All right. The Gray Gargoyle, while gray, is not a gargoyle. Discuss. That was a perfect impression, by the way, if you knew what I was doing. All right. That comes out in October. Moving forward, just Marvel had a ton of press release stuff this week. Predator kills the Marvel Universe. Well, why not? Punisher has been able to. Deadpool has been able to. Why not the Predator? Not a Predator, the Predator. Or in this case, actually, now that I look at it, just Predator. So writer Benjamin Percy will wrap up his Marvel Predator crossovers in Predator Kills the Marvel Universe, a 5-issue series, comes out this August. The artist on it is Marcelo Ferreira, who is the artist currently drawing the Spider-Man one. I've got thoughts on that I will share. Not all positive, to be honest. Anyway, I liked the Predator Wolverine book. I will say that. This crossover promises shocking deaths. You kind of have to if you have kills in the title. And it's got an army of predators led by a predator king. I'm really not sure if we've seen a predator king before. There have been lots of different types of predators in the Predator movies. I don't know if any of them was classified as a predator king or not. But the Predator King has a vibranium arsenal and a human ally to launch an attack on Earth. I am possibly way out of pocket with this guess, but I think that the Predators will end up accepting Kraven the Hunter into their ranks. And that's who is betraying Earth, is Kraven. Maybe that's crazy. It just feels like Kraven's whole ethos to hunting really lines up very, very well with the Predators. So it feels like he would be the perfect character there to team up with them and betray Earth. I don't know, though. It's not like I heard anything. It's just a guess. Then again, what does Predator know? He's not like, the weak point for the Pentagon is on the east side. That's a perfect impression of Predator. Predator, yeah, of a Predator, I suppose. That was a perfect impression of Kraven the Hunter, if you saw his last movie. I'll predate you. And I'm Kraven. I'd be curious to watch Alien Earth because it's by Noah Hawley, and he's done a lot of good stuff. So I kind of trust him, I'll give it a shot. I did see the trailer for the Predator movie, not the animated one, actually, no. But I saw the trailer for Predator Badlands, and I guess I won't explicitly say this in case it's a spoiler, but if you watch the trailer closely, it like if you watch it closely, it crosses over with another property. There's just like, no question about it. So that was a surprise. But it's by the same guy that did Prey, and I thought Prey was rock solid, like really, really good. Yeah, Predators was the one with like 7 or 8 guys that were brought to the Predators homeworld, right? With guys like Adrian Brody and Topher Grace and stuff. And Lawrence Fishburne, that was a good one. That was honestly, like, I was so surprised that one did not do better, because that one was badass. Okay, I'm not the only one that thinks that. I like the Predator mythos generally. It wasn't the Predator homeworld. Oh, it was just an alien world. It's been a long time since I saw it. They always lose. Well, yeah, because they're the bad guy in the movies, except for the Predator Aliens movies. So, dude, the Predator was stunningly bad. That's the only one that I'm like, oh, that's garbage. It's like, and I never expected that from Shane Black, because I've liked so many movies that he's done. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. What's it called? Like The Lucky Guys or something like that. He's just made so many good movies, and The Predator was so bad. It just, at the very end, it just gets utterly chaotic with the editing. And there were like characters that I thought had died that didn't, and other characters where I was like, oh, I guess that guy died. The Good Guys was really good. Yeah. It was frankly insane how bad The Predator was. Literally the only bad Predator. Yeah, it was kind of funny because people used to say that Predator 2 wasn't good because, it didn't have Arnold. And it was a big difference from the first one. But then you add a bunch of these other Predator movies and you're like, oh, no, Predator 2 is still pretty fun. It's got some good actors in it. It tells a different type of story. It's cool. It's good. It's not as good as the first one, but it's good. I would say Alien versus Predator Requiem is also pretty bad. Like, you cannot see what's going on in that film. It is the physically darkest film I've ever barely seen. I don't know why I quoted barely. I meant to quote seen. Yeah, Shane Black did Iron Man 3 and I liked it. Prey is so good. So good. Gonna keep moving. Daredevil. It's in my thumbnail. Let's talk about this. Daredevil used some of the Spider-Man music. What, if anything, does that imply? Well, I'm going to break it down here so that we're all on the same page, okay? So, in the season finale of Daredevil Born Again, which I guess is like 2 weeks ago now, it took a little while for us to all realize this. Daredevil in a certain scene is mentioning what he's going to need to do next, sort of setting up season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. And he's saying that he needs to build an army to go up against Kingpin. So just before he says that line, while he's talking about what he's going to need to do, if you listen closely to the music, a lot of people noticed, oh, they play a bit of the leitmotif of Spider-Man from the MCU films. And then on top of that, the composers for the show, the Newton brothers, confirmed it on social media before they quickly deleted it. So, for instance, someone first says, am I just delusional, or is that the MCU Spider-Man leitmotif right before Matt says that he needs an army and he's got a clip? And then this person's like, I hear it. And they tag the Newton brothers. When this is released, it is going to be a blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. And then the Newton brothers like raise their hands like, yep, I got it. And they shared that. So they confirmed. I mean, they would know. They did the music. Like, they used it. So, that's interesting. Showrunner Dario Scardapane was asked directly by Entertainment Weekly what it means. And he gave basically a non-committal quote saying, quote, "I don't really know. That's the best way of putting that. Marvel doesn't always share their plans with me," end quote. I think personally that there's a good chance that Spider-Man could have a one episode cameo in Daredevil. I think that like Marvel and Sony could work something out there. Because it's like this. At all they'd really need to do is get Tom Holland to do voiceover work a little bit. You you don't want to take away from Daredevil too much, so you probably wouldn't want to use too much Spider-Man in his show. Save that maybe for a movie or something. In other words, they could have a stuntman or a CG Spider-Man with the mask on the whole time. That's one of the advantages. There's even been a rumor that Tom Holland is not tremendously available for the next Avengers movie, so it'll be primarily a voice acting role. It's one of the unique things you could do with characters like Spider-Man or Moon Knight, characters that are masked up. I don't know. Maybe that's me hoping too much. I will admit, maybe that's me hoping too much and they put it in there just to excite people. Or maybe it implies something that would be in the next Spider-Man movie, right? Like maybe Kingpin would be in the background in some way in the next Spider-Man movie. But I think that there's a small chance that like Spider-Man could have like a good moment in the next season. Like just in one episode, like a moment. But it would be fun. I would say no, he's not too overpowered. I mean, in the comics anyway, Kingpin always can mess Spider-Man up. And he's got an army right now. So Daredevil needs one. And then that's before you even get into if Kingpin maybe hires some mercenaries, Bullseye is free. He's out there. Kingpin could literally also hire some other mercenaries. So I think that they do need an army of superheroes for at least an episode or two. I think that we'll at least get some of the Defenders, but there's other characters that they could easily rope in there. Echo makes a lot of sense. Hawkeye could make sense. I'm talking more of the Kate Bishop one. You could do Ms. Marvel. I don't think that they would, but you could. She's basically local and her dad was on the show. Moon Knight could certainly be in New York. Yeah. Boy, I don't know. That's a good question. Vincent D'Onofrio, best MCU villain casting ever. I would say they really struck gold with hiring Tom Hiddleston as Loki. They've got way more mileage out of Loki than I think they ever expected to. I think he really portrayed that character very accurately. I think no comics fan would be upset with how Loki was portrayed by Hiddleston. They've had some really good actors. I think it wasn't the MCU that cast them, but we did get Green Goblin and Dr. Octopus in the last Spider-Man movie, and they were pretty darn good. But let me just say, D'Onofrio's, I really like him as Kingpin. I really do. Yeah, he's a good actor. Vanessa, when I was a young man, it was told to me that my father would take me into the city to see a marching band. He said, "Son, when you grow up, will you be the savior of the broken, the beaten, and the damned?" Loki did flip sides. I'm just saying he started as a villain in the first two movies, no question, and that was pretty good casting. What do you think of my Kingpin? Son. Ian McKellen was great. The original question did add the qualifier of MCU, though, so I'll go, okay, that's fair, He will always be Detective Gorin in Law and Order Criminal Intent. Oh, Vincent D'Onofrio. Right. Thank you. Kingpin mic drop impression. Oh yeah, he did. We were talking villains, though. I will say that. But yes. All right. I got more news. That was just an interesting one. You should go back and listen to the clip, see if you can catch it. I did go back and listen. Took me a minute because it is pretty soft, but it just is the Spider-Man theme. They played it for a reason. I don't know what that reason is yet. Yes, and Kevin has me continue. Will you be a drummer, Vanessa, with everyone marching to your beat, or just another mook in the brass section? Surprise, it's me. It's not Vincent D'Onofrio. Yes, as soon as I find it. I just don't know where it is. I placed it somewhere to be safe, and then I forgot where that somewhere was. So once I find it, yes, I will be talking about my Jaws manga. All right. There was a huge Criminal preview. I love Criminal, so any excuse I can get to talk about it. It's been 5 years since the last Criminal comic that went from 2019 to 2020. Always by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. It's one of my favorite things that they make together. But they're going to have it come back as a 200-page graphic novel. Comes out this September, and it's called The Knives. The Knives. It's set in the world of Criminal. This came out through Image's July solicitations in their catalog. 15 pages they gave away to the stores. The 15 pages of the Criminal comic. You can read them. They're up on various sites. I mean, they put it out there as promotional material, so it's not like you're stealing. It's out there to encourage stores and folks to ask for their shop to carry this book. The story is going to be an intertwining story of 3 different characters in 2012 Los Angeles. Of that, 2 of them have been in the comics before. This is going to bring Brack. It's going to bring Brack to the table. It's going to bring back Tracy Lawless, and a little more interesting to me for this specific story, Jacob Kurtz. Jacob Kurtz has been in the comics before. He is a cartoonist, but also a forger. He's been a forger in the past. In this, he's in the story because his comic is getting turned into a television show, and he's been hired onto the writing staff. So he's coming to Hollywood. Obviously, there's something there that they can probably tie in to their Brubaker and Phillips experience bringing Criminal to Amazon as a TV show. So I think that, the point that they're bringing it back for is because the Criminal TV adaptation that began filming last year in June, and it's expected to debut on Amazon later this year. Very cool. Very, very cool. Oh, Stray Bullets is so good. So good. I've wanted to do an episode about what the Laphams did with Stray Bullets, but it is such a sprawling, epic comic, and I don't want to get bogged down with trying to recap too much about it. But it's a great crime comic. So many different characters, non-linear storytelling. It just weaves in and out of people's lives, and it is just incredible. Really, really good. Yep. I did read Postal. Who did Postal? I'm trying to remember. I did read that one. Was that artwork by Isaac Goodhart? Let me look it up. Yep. Matt Hawkins and Brian Hill were the writers. Isaac Goodhart was the artist. Yeah, I did read that. That was a cool book. Mm-hmm. How many? It went 27 issues. I guess that's more than I realized. Huh. Yeah. That's also a good comic that involves criminals. Yeah. I'm working with Lapham right now. Wow, I'm jealous. I really admire David Lapham. I remember like at a certain point I was reading Stray Bullets, and it had not clicked for me for some reason that he was the same guy that did all that work at Valiant that I'd read on books like Harbinger. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I've read this guy's. And it just hadn't clicked because I was focused so much on the writing in Stray Bullets that, like, the fact that I'd read this artist before on something so different had never clicked. But it was just a funny realization to myself. Yeah, I'll work on that. Dude, Pope was fantastic. Totally agree. Brubaker and Phillips have literally never disappointed me. Never. I love them. Oh, yeah, that's right. He did do a Detective Comics run. I read that. Yeah, Stumptown was great. Stumptown was really, really good. And the TV series was really good too. And I think it was the pandemic that shut that one down, and it just didn't quite make enough sense to sort of get it back up and running again, unfortunately. But it's too bad because it was a good adaptation, but a great comic. Yeah, I really like crime comics. I could talk about crime comics for quite a while. So you know what? Maybe that's what I'll do for June's exclusive video on Patreon, is just sort of riff on some of my favorite crime comics. I'll have to think about that. Sleeper was the first one I really noticed Brubaker and Phillips on. So yeah, I love that one. Comicsbeat is going to, unfortunately, kind of sadly, in my opinion, end their Bookscan analysis. Let me talk about what that is if you never read it. Comicsbeat has looked at the data from a company called Circana Bookscan since 2017. It's been 8 years of an annual humongous analysis on the sales trends for comics and manga in the bookstore market, and that includes Amazon. They estimate they cover probably about 85% of all book sales with their data. A lot, but there's even more sales beyond this. And it's always this thing that a guy named Brian Hibbs has done this humongous analysis on. But sadly, there's new ownership at Circana, and they've ended their relationship with. So Comicsbeat posted that sadly, writer Brian Hibbs will no longer be able to provide the analysis for the industry. Now, this is especially a bummer because Hibbs has actually been doing this for like 20 years. Before they officially had a relationship with Bookscan, Hibbs would do that off of leaked data, and he'd do like a detailed analysis. Super valuable for the industry. Super interesting every year. But because they had this relationship now, Bookscan said, yeah, if you do that with leaked information now, we're going to go after you. So it looks like they didn't really exactly end on a super happy note. It's just frustrating because it's a humongous article that would like take you a couple days to read through, but the data was always interesting, seeing what went up, what went down for both publishers, distributors, the top 10 comics of the year, like the sales numbers. It was always just really interesting to me. It was inside baseball type stuff, but it was good. For the record, though, you can still see some of this data. ICV2 posts monthly Circana sales data. It's stuff that they sell, so they didn't want to, I guess, give it away anymore. Yeah, it was just a really good tool for lots of people in the industry. I never knew about Comicsbeat. Comicsbeat is a really good journalistic site about comics. I recommend it. I think that there's a lot there that's nice. Just wanted to post about that, I guess, and keep going. This story about Kickstarter was so fascinating, and things happened so fast. But Kickstarter sort of flip-flopped on whether they'd let a comic actually launch on Kickstarter. Let's talk about that. So, last Thursday, Kickstarter flagged an anthology that was about to launch, Megaton Man Multi-Mentions. because it's an anthology, and one of the artists, Milo Trent, happens to live in Iran. And Kickstarter was worried that somehow that meant that they would be breaking U.S. trade laws and getting themselves in trouble. And it seemed like a big overreaction to me. I was like, what? I can't believe they're flagging it because one artist drew 4 pages and happens to live in Iran. Creator Don Simpson sent an email to all the creators on the book, and he said that he's not going to remove a creator. You know, he's not going to just say, oh, it's difficult, you're out. And he said he wasn't going to beg Kickstarter to, reinstate the campaign. So he was worried it might be dead. It became news. People were talking about it. But then the next day, Kickstarter sent this note to Eli Schwab of Cosmic Lion, who is publishing the book, and they reversed their policy. They reversed it and allowed it to launch. So that's ultimately a good, happy ending. It was just for about 24 hours, people were worried that this book wasn't going to be allowed to be crowdfunded. The project, just so you know, it features over 60 indie comics creators doing their take on Megaton Man, superhero satire that's been around for a long time. Don Simpson helped a lot of the Image guys, did a bunch of stuff at Image back in the early 90s. A lot of great comics history there to explore and learn about. Megaton Man is funny. He always says, woo! Anyway, there's the link for it. I recommend checking it out. I'm sure it will go well past its funding goals. Oh, John's here. Let's see. As a contributor to the book, we're so glad Kickstarter changed their minds on this one. Comic Book Defense League Fund got involved on this one too. Don did a complete play-by-play blog as all this was going down. Very dramatic up and down within a very short period of time. But I am glad that it's going forward, John. Congrats. That's good news. Did Jim Rugg do something on this? That I didn't know. I think I missed that. That's really cool. Boy, Jim has been producing some absolutely gorgeous, not that this is that new, but he's been producing some really gorgeous ballpoint pen illustrations. The stuff Jim can do with ballpoint pens, just gorgeous, just amazing. Really always wows me. Always wows me. But Don Simpson seems to be a pretty stand-up guy too. Thank you. I guess I've got a new impression in my back pocket. I've never done that before, but thank you. I guess I've got a second one. Thanks, true believer. Oh my God. Somebody out there, do one of you guys play this game called Diablo 4? Because I've heard that, but I don't know the game. And then this news item crossed my path because I absolutely love Berserk. It's like just one of my favorite manga of all time. And it's officially crossing over with Diablo, but I don't know Diablo. So the game Diablo 4 announced that they're having this crossover with Berserk starting May 6th. Berserk is like dark fantasy. From my reading up on the news, it seems like that's what Diablo is as well. Like an action role-playing game, but set in like sort of a dark fantasy world. So this actually feels like it makes a lot of sense. Players will be able to, for like a 1-month period, be able to win and purchase armor, horses, and all sorts of cosmetics, basically items that are really important within the world of Berserk. This single image is of a character from the manga called the Skull Knight, a mysterious character that I guess you can get his armor as a necromancer or something. I don't know. Maybe that has to do with the game. I don't really know. I'm a massive Berserk fan, and I could not give less of a shit about a Diablo crossover. Okay, well, I thought it looks awesome. I would love likes. Thank you. There's a couple different horses in it. Here's a quote that they had on their website, the Diablo site. Slaying powerful elite enemies in-game has a chance to drop sinister behemoths. That's a element from Berserk. Ovoid creatures which grant audience with powerful demons capable of terrible sacrifice. These behemoths can be collected and then used to earn Berserk-themed cosmetics. That's awesome. That's so cool. Fans of the first 3 Diablo games seem to all hate Diablo 4. Jeez, it's just not something I know about. Total like empty space there. I just have never played any of the Diablo games. I don't know anything about it, but I love Berserk. So the idea to look like some of these characters and get their items, like, that's so appealing. Thought I'd spread the word because it's going from something like May 6th to June 6th. So if you do play it, maybe this is for you. A director admitted that he ghost directed the movie Dredd. Yeah, let's talk about that. So while promoting 28 Years Later to GQ, writer and director Alex Garland revealed that the first movie he directed was not Ex Machina back in 2012. I think that was 2012. I may have gotten the dates on this wrong. But he actually says that he directed Dredd, which is credited to Pete Travis. Congratulations, Joe. That was really influential. So, we knew he wrote it. Garland has written a lot of great films. There were stories, I remember, back when this movie was coming out, that Travis had big disagreements with the producers, that he had been frozen out of the editing process. But we've never heard that somebody else ghost directed the film. You hear that all the time about Poltergeist. Lots of people like to claim that Steven Spielberg actually directed Poltergeist, but I think Tobe Hooper did, personally. I think he did. Thank you. I enjoyed D4. I enjoyed all Diablo games. Good times. Well, if you like Berserk, you got to get some of them items. I'd never heard this rumor before. But, yeah. Let's see. Garland told GQ that the making of the movie was a mess. They ended up with a great movie, but he added this. He says, within this is a disservice to Pete Travis, who is the credited director, who did some fundamental crucial things, and he deserves that title. He was put in an absolutely impossible situation, and retrospectively, the longer I've worked, the more ridiculous I think it was. After the experience of making Dredd, what I said is, I'm not doing this again. Just let me do that job. Let's simplify this. So basically, he talks about how, he will only direct if he's written his own scripts now. He's not going to just try to, have somebody else do it and then end up doing it himself. He said it was a mess, and he ended up directing most of that movie. I think that was fascinating to hear. And he's trying to give Pete Travis all the credit in the world. It sounds like it was more the producers pulled him away from it and blocked him from doing things. So, they were the ones with the money. It was a bad situation. They ended up with a great movie. And Alex Garland, man, I mean, I don't know if there's anything he's worked on that's been bad. It's not that I love all of it, but, Ex Machina was interesting. His scripts and stuff like this, or 28 Days Later, Sunshine. He's done a lot of collaboration with Danny Boyle. That's one guy that he does a lot with. But I thought that was amazing. What? Tombstone is I've never heard that. Kurt Russell did Tombstone, some people say? Wow. Huh. I really hope 28 Years Later uses some of the ideas from Crossed Plus 100, the series set 100 years after Crossed. I didn't read it, so I don't know. But I know it's sort of a similar idea of rage zombies more than zombies. Oh, I don't think you can hide it, and that's probably why there are rumors out there. But it wasn't that big a hit. If this was a movie that made 500 million, I'm sure we'd get lots of stories from the crew. But this made something like $48 million or something. So probably the crew just moved on to their next job. Oh yeah, Annihilation was really cool. Yeah, nothing bad by Alex Garland in my opinion. I thought Civil War was absolutely brutal, really hard to deal with because it was just so serious and stuff. Let me do some more news because I want to talk about the comics that came out this week. Let's see. IDW and Mattel are teaming up to do a Monster High comic. I figure somebody out there is into this stuff. Mattel and IDW announced that they're going to do a 5-issue series. It's based on the popular dolls. I guess I've seen these. I don't know a whole lot about them, but they're like, kind of simple Barbie-sized dolls, but that are like monsters. I think that's pretty straightforward. Monster High World Scare follows Frankie Stein and the Boo Crew as they compete in the World Scare, where gifted ghouls showcase their eerie ideas and latest breakthroughs that could change monsterkind forever. Their invention, a tribute to Frankie Stein's late father, Headmaster Frankenstein, is sure to shock the judges. Who's going to get it? Who's going to get it? They've already done a Monster High book. Oh! Okay. Well, I missed that. I drew Frankenstein smoking a joint one time and called it Monster High. Does that count for something? Yes, I think what it counts for is Mattel will now be coming to collect a portion of all of your sales. Alan Moore wrote Monster High World Scare. I think we're getting our news stories a little tangled. Maybe. I don't know. I gotta keep moving. The first issue is going to be double-sized, folks. So now you're sold, right? The 2000 AD comics publisher Rebellion, they're going to publish a German action fantasy graphic novel. So Rebellion announced that they're going to publish this book, Big Ass Sword, an original graphic novel by German creator Andreas Butzbach. I'm just guessing at the pronunciation. Sorry if I got it wrong. The 96-page hardcover features a wasteland wandering robot with a mammoth sword. It's going to hit stores November 4th. Big Ass Sword, as well as other creations by Andreas Butzbach, was first published in German indie anthology Fantasy 3000. I don't know any German, so I'll just guess at this. Weißblech Comics. That was back in October 2023. The graphic novel will include all of those stories in English, just to be clear, plus a new one. Just looked kind of cool, interesting. I look at the art, and it reminds me of, a little bit of Hellboy, a little bit of Headlopper, just a couple different things. I don't know. It could be fun. It could be a cool idea, so I thought I'd pass that on. Wise Top. Talking about my weird edit in the Cerebus video. Yes. One more piece of news. Diamond has switched ownership again. I swear to God, this company, they're going to break me. This one, I literally laughed when I read the latest news because it's just, I never in a million years thought this story would just keep going. But Diamond Distribution, so Diamond went bankrupt. They held a bankruptcy auction, and Alliance Entertainment was declared the winner. Seems simple enough, right? Well, then the Diamond debtors declared that they were actually going to accept the backup bid instead, which was by two companies, Universal, which is a Canadian comics distributor, and Ad Populum, which is a toy manufacturer, Whiz Kids, Nika, stuff like that. So there we go. We've got okay, first there was one new owner, now there's a second owner. Well, then Alliance sued them, and they won the right to finalize the purchase. They were like, nope, We were the bidder. We won the auction. We should get it. And the judge is like, you're right. So now we've got the third owner. I mean, it's obviously the first person, but still. Then this week, Alliance announced that they were canceling the purchase. They said that there's something that happened, we don't know what, that made it so that the deal was not what they originally agreed to, which is very confusing for all of us because anyone that was bidding had to get approved. They had an NDA so that they could look at all of the assets, all of the liens that Diamond had so that they could make, an accurate and knowledgeable bid. Something wasn't right, and Alliance is now no longer buying it. That is just so crazy. They just, like days ago, basically, won their lawsuit to buy Diamond, and then they were like, we're actually not going through with it. So Diamond, in the meantime, has announced that they are moving forward with business as usual and that they will soon announce their new purchasers. I do find that interesting that they did use the plural there. That does make me think that they're going back to the universal ad populum bid, but that is not confirmed yet, okay? So there's more to come on this. More to come. However, thinking about it, what happened? There's a couple things that could have happened. Could there have been, for instance, a lien that they didn't know about? In other words, one of the people that is owed money by Diamond had like a really good claim and therefore it was going to cost more than they were told. Maybe. That seems like a big mistake somewhere, but it's possible. It's possible. Or the fact is, Alliance mostly wanted this for this sort of toy and collectibles business. And if you're paying attention, these tariffs, like it turns out that comics did get a carve out. They're not going to be affected by the tariffs, but toys definitely are. All the toy manufacturers either say their prices are going up or just expect the price to go up once it's ready to be shipped because of a tariff. Like goes up a lot. That could have affected their bottom line so much that they were like, you know what, better to cut bait and lose what we've already invested in court filing fees and stuff like that than to actually overspend on something that is now not going to really make us money. That might be the case. Just so you know, like right now, Titan Comics is currently in the process. They're filing paperwork saying that a bunch of their inventory that Diamond has at their warehouse is not Diamond's. Diamond's counting it as part of their assets, but they're saying like, no, if you're not like, we're not working well together right now, we want all those comics back. So it's a mess. It's a mess. I know, doesn't it? It's so back and forth. I've never seen anything like this. Usually if a company goes bankrupt, it is a boring process of going to court and somebody buys it and you never hear about it again. But instead on this, it keeps ping-ponging back and forth. The tariff thing changes so much. Alliance may have thought toys would be exempt when they made the bid. I don't know if they thought it would be exempt, but they probably didn't know it was going through and they may be looking for a way out is all I'm saying. There was another development today. Oh, I don't think I know about this. Let's see what Justin types. The trustee is asking the court to change the bankruptcy to Chapter 7 because Diamond wasn't filing their monthly reports. Got it. They were in something called Chapter 11 bankruptcy, folks, which gives you time to either settle your debts or reorganize your business, hopefully come out of it, on top. But Chapter 7 means you're definitely shutting down. Chapter 7 bankruptcy is like the end stages, and it just gives you organizational time to settle everything. That's too bad. Diamonds apparently are not forever. Just a total mess of a news story. Just, yeah. Sean and Ed should write a crime comic about it. Yup. Oh my God. It's just so silly. I never expected anything like this when I started reporting on just like the high level changes on Diamond Distribution. Sorry, I know it's a little spotty for a minute. I'm hooking up my second camera so that we can take a look at some comics that came out this week. Some great stuff, some average stuff, some bad stuff. Let me just get this focused, and we'll move over to the second part of the entertainment for tonight. Just a silly story, though. There we go. Maybe zoom out a little bit more. And let me take a swig of this Mountain Dew Baja Blast, courtesy of Steve. Circuitron says Frazetta Girls are going to publish Frazetta Works. They just announced the first one will be a collection of his pen and ink stuff. Very cool. Big fan of Frazetta's work, so that's cool to know. So yeah, I picked up the latest issue of Hush 2. I got the foil cover because it was being sold for the cover price, so might as well, I guess. But that's what it looks like when it's not all shiny and sparkly. I don't know. It's kind of nice, but it definitely picks up fingerprints very easily. I read through this very fast. And so fast that at the end, I really took a look at this book and I go, oh, is this less than 22 pages? But I counted it up. It is 22 pages. It reads very fast. But basically all that happens in this is last issue, Hush tortured Joker a bunch, and this week Batman takes Joker to see Dr. Leslie Tompkins, who helped raise him as a child and is a good doctor. And that's about it. Now, I guess there's a little bit more. At a certain point, she stabilizes Joker in this, and so Batman takes him to the Batcave to recuperate because he's like, well, Joker will be killed anywhere else. And it's like, you know what? Why would that be your responsibility? I get that you don't want to you would prevent somebody from dying even if they're a bad person. You've got a no-kill rule. But if you put him into custody and you sort of are like, I know that other people will attack him and stuff. It's still not your responsibility in a way, especially when this is a specific criminal who has just literally killed so many people that it's sort of like, I don't know, it stretches credulity. I am okay with Batman not killing the Joker. But I feel like, if anything happened to him in Arkham, I don't know why Batman cares that much. Anyway, Jason Todd breaks into the Batcave to kill Joker, and so they have a little fight. And that's the story. I would say so far that Hush 2 is a disappointment, and I'd say that as someone that didn't even think that the first Hush was that special. I would say I actually kind of dug the artwork by Jim Lee, and I still do. But the first Hush story, it at least introduced a new villain, and there were some twists as to who was pulling the strings. I was like, okay, it's kind of obvious who the villain would be, because there were these flashbacks to Batman's childhood friend and stuff. I'm like, well, clearly he's going to be the villain, but what's his story? When did he change? We didn't really get a satisfying answer to any of that. We're just like, okay, he's just jealous. He's just jealous. I don't know. So I may stick with this out of curiosity to see what Jim Lee does with his art, because I do feel like in the flashback sequences, he's putting in some extra effort. There's some really interesting rendering and detailing in that. I find that satisfying. I don't look at this and go like, oh, Jim Lee got old and lost a step. No, Jim Lee still is putting in the same level of effort and detail that he always has. And there are still the occasional panels in flashback with, these sort of like color washes that I think are fantastic. If the whole comic was done like this, I'd be a little more into it because of how much I like the sort of watercolor shaded artwork. I think it really flatters the line art, and it looks a little different. It's just something a little different. I like it. I like that stuff. Hush is an excellent book for someone's first Batman. In that regard, I'll sort of agree with you just because it does give you kind of all the characters. But Hush 2 doesn't really give us anything new yet. And I think it's only going to be 6 issues. So we're already a third of the way through and hardly anything's happened. Plus, look at the Joker. Excuse me. The Riddler. Maybe like this is a fine design for a character, right? This is a fine design. Like it's cool. It's military. There's this huge built guy. But to me, the Riddler has never been a big, strong fighter guy. He's a guy that's clever. And I don't think he needs to have this sort of vaguely military gear and this huge, bulky body, like ready to just throw a beat down. This weird, like, question mark tattoo over his eye. I don't know. To me, that doesn't say Riddler. That looks like, one of Riddler's henchmen or something. I just don't love it. Riddler cosplayed by Guy Gardner. I don't know. So I feel bad, but it's really not for me. The only thing I like is some of the art. I do like some of the art still. I'll probably always like Jim Lee's art, and I really like what he does in the flashback sequences. I think that's very attractive, and it's cool to see him still play around with how he finishes and renders his art. I think that's very satisfying. But this stuff is like, it's fine. Just not a lot happening, really. Not a lot happening. What else should I talk about this week? I don't have a lot to say, so I'll just go through Predator versus Spider-Man kind of quickly. I like the Predator Wolverine series, okay? Kind of used a bunch of the Wolverine history, because it was like he kept encountering the Predator throughout his very long life. And I was like, that's a cool angle to the story. And it sort of mixed in some of the Weapon X technology and stuff. I was like, all right, I kind of like that. I skipped Predator Black Panther because I was like, I don't know, what he's probably going to steal some vibranium. The end. But Spider-Man, I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. I like Spider-Man. Let's see. Hush 2 is so far better than Loeb's Ultimates 3. I don't disagree with you there. Thank you for the super chat very, very much. And yeah, Ultimates 3 is not my favorite. So I was like, I'll give this a shot. And it's definitely like, kind of R-rated like Predator, which doesn't always feel completely accurate to Spider-Man for me. But that's okay, because I like Predator, and I figured there'd be a mix of styles there. Some of the Spider-Man art is pretty cool and dramatic. I think that's well done. But some of the shading on the characters is very confusing. There is a face in this I want to show you guys. There's a scene where Mary Jane is on a subway, and the power goes out, okay? So this is supposed to be Mary Jane here. And then this is her when the lights go out. And you guys tell me, like, I'm going to zoom in on this face. You guys got to see this. That's as much as I can zoom in. Look at that face. What in the world is even going on there? Let me focus this a little bit more. I know I can do this. Give me a sec. That's the face. What in the world is that? I'm having trouble, like, because I'm zoomed in so far. I got to zoom back out. What in the world is that face? So The art was hit and miss. Rami, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. That's makes it worth doing the show. The Last Halloween is better than Hush 2. Yeah, I'd agree with you there. At the same time, it sort of lost my interest after like the first 3 issues or so. Yeah, exactly. It's just bizarre shadows. I posted this panel on social media just going like, this one confuses me. And some people were like, oh, I bet it's AI. I don't think that's the case. I really don't. Because if I look through the rest of this, I don't see anything too strange with, like the faces or the hands or anything. Weird ways that hair strands or accessories can be represented with AI. I don't think it is. I think that the character or the artist sort of drew a face, wasn't exactly happy with it, decided to cover it up in shadows, and just made some very strange decisions. But it just looks scarier than the Predator. I have done that face when I was drawing 4 o'clock in the morning. I think that's all it is. But it just isn't very good. Ultimately, I don't think I'll stay with this one because it just didn't quite give me anything that interesting. I'd bet you all my money that Craven will become an important part of this story as it continues. I would bet anything. But I don't know. Whatever. I gave it a shot. Wasn't for me. Your mileage may vary. What was fun this week? Let me just jump to this. Now, this is not a new book at all. Bitterroot. I want to say it started like as far back as like 2018 or something. Let me just see if I'm looking at the indicia to see if it lets me know because I don't really remember. Yeah, it was somewhere around there anyway. But it's won an Eisner. It's won a Ringo. I've heard of Bitterroot forever. And I feel so dumb now that I've read it that I didn't try it earlier. I guess I had in my mind that it was just actual history. But it isn't. It's supernatural horror adventure. And it's a period piece. The creative team, David F. Walker, Chuck Brown, Sanford Green, really incredible. They tell a story about the Sangier family. And when is this set? It's set like turn of the century or something close to that. 1920s. Yeah, 1920s. And it's importantly a black family. Okay. And they're very different people. It's a smallish family, but of aunts, uncles, cousins, and they fight monsters, supernatural monsters that they call the Janu. So they train themselves to be able to fight, and the sort of elderly aunt of the family, Ma Etta, mixes literal like roots and stuff that can cure these monsters and make them human again. And then within this story, strange things happen where they start to encounter monsters that are not Janu. There's something else. In fact, as this continues, what they learn is that there's like an estranged uncle that knows a little bit more about some of the supernatural. And he talks about how like Janu are what are created when people like let darkness into their heart and become evil people, racists and just, abusers and terrible people like that. And that their monstrous inner self like takes over and they become literal monsters. So it's almost like they're people masquerading as demons, but they come across a demon masquerading as a man. And they come across these hellholes that are letting evil into the world. There's character arcs though in this. Like there's this like white guy that grew up in the deep south with a bunch of Klansmen, but he wasn't real. He didn't become a Janu because he hasn't actually killed anyone yet. Even though he's hanging around with these terrible people and probably would have become that. Anyway, one of the family members stops a bunch of these monsters, and this kid just starts tagging along to sort of learn about this bigger, broader world. Look at this gorgeous variant cover for issue 2 by Bill Sienkiewicz, by the way. That's pretty cool. Anyway, all sorts of wild supernatural stuff happens. But, I checked it out because I love that movie Sinners so much. And some people were like, Bitter Root kind of has some similar vibes to it. It's not the same story, but it's about, black people. It's a period piece, and it has supernatural elements. So there's some crossover there. And I was like, oh, okay, let me see. No kidding. Ryan Coogler was going to produce a Bitter Root movie at one point with Regina King as director. I never heard about that. You just got the omnibus? I'm going to be blasting through this. It's so good, folks. So this isn't new. Like the trade paperbacks are out there, published by Image. The art by Sanford Green is a blast. It's expressive. It's dynamic. It has, cool, interesting creatures. All the family members are different. There's interesting supporting characters like local policemen and stuff. The monsters are really mean-spirited and evil in an interesting way. It's great, folks. I so strongly recommend it. This thing was such a find. I feel so dumb that I didn't discover it sooner, but it was my favorite thing that I read this week. I won't call it my book of the week because it's something that's been out for a while. It's new to me, but it isn't new to everybody. And I try to choose a book of the week out of what just came out, but it is fantastic. And I wanted to highlight that. Bitter Root is really something special. I can't wait to read more of it. I'm so glad I checked that out. What else was fun and cool to talk about this week? Absolute Wonder Woman continues to be a banger. This has a different artist than Hayden Sherman. Mattia de Ulis. I'm sort of guessing at the pronunciation. But either way, Kelly Thompson continues to give us a really complex version of both Wonder Woman and her supporting cast. This one is mostly about Wonder Woman and her adoptive mother, Cersei, and a lot of their time in hell. In this issue, Wonder Woman has been taken back to hell, and she's forced by Hades to fight. And she uses everything she's learned in her life to sort of trick Hades. I won't get into all of that, but it felt very much like classic Greek mythology, which I feel doesn't always get wrapped into Wonder Woman as much as you'd expect it to. She also, by the way, fights a monster in this. Hades forces Wonder Woman to fight a monster in the arena. And what is it called? I forget. They call it something like a chimera, but it is definitely a take on Cheetah, because it's like, it's not a cheetah. It's got like tiger stripes and it's got horns, but it's feline and it's female and it's dangerous. So I think it opens the door to what a version of Cheetah could be in this comic. This isn't specifically Cheetah, but I think it opens the door to what it could be because it's very dangerous. Persephone plays a key role in this story. Lots of Wonder Woman's history growing up and how she remembers the stuff she was taught to figure out lessons way later in life. Like, you don't always understand the meaning of what you're being taught until it truly becomes applicable later. But you still have to try to remember what you've been taught. No, I want to grow my hair longer. I'm not going to cut my hair. I love Hayden Sherman's work in this series. Love it, love it, love it. But I just wanted to give a shout out to how much Kelly Thompson is doing to develop this version of Wonder Woman. As a character that grew up in a much harsher environment, but it's great. Also, because this story is kind of serious, they have this delightful backup thing here with art by Dustin Nguyen, where child Wonder Woman makes friends out of the tiny monsters that live in hell. This one's pretty great. I'll just give a little bit of this one away. She comes home with this little monster, and Cersei, her mom, is like, no, we have too many friends. And then she pouts and is like, fine, I guess I'm sorry. I'll see you tomorrow, but I can't take you in. Her mom's like, all right, you win. And then the house is just full of tons and tons of tiny monsters. It's adorable, but it's kind of nice to end a comic with something a little funny and light, to sort of offset the more serious tone that the majority of the book had. I loved it. As much as I love Hayden Sherman's Wonder Woman, Daedalus needs a Wonder Woman book of their own. It's good artwork. It totally is. I've really fallen in a huge way for Hayden, but look at the expressiveness of sort of like child Wonder Woman pouting a little bit that she can't figure out the lesson. And Cersei, sort of being like, come on, keep thinking about it. Very good comic. Very, very good comic. Her making demon friends is a highlight of the series. Is Chimera a hard C? I've always read it as Chimera. Oh, I'd always heard it as Chimera. I don't think... I'm pretty sure I have it right. I'm pretty sure. Bug Wars is fun. Redcoat, actually, this came out last week and I just had missed it, but this was a really good one. There's a new character called the Northerner or the Northman. Hold on, it tells me at the end. I forget. The Northerner. There's something cool going on here in the Ghost Machine universe. This Northerner, looks like he's from the Union, not the Confederacy, but when he is when he's in a fight, he reaches into his satchel and he's got modern era guns. He's got modern era guns. So, and he's searching for Simon Pure, the titular character of Redcoat. There's also sort of a bio page at the back, and he's holding an Uzi. Like, think of what an advantage it would be if you could pull out modern weapons back around, the little past Civil War. So, it's a blast. It was really, really cool. I don't know if he's going to be a villain or an ally or something in between, but it's a really cool new character. I enjoyed that. Let's see. One World Under Doom continues to be interesting and a tiny bit frustrating, as it seems like Dr. Doom has taken over the world without controlling people's minds. Supposedly, he just used his magic to have extra time to negotiate with every world leader and give them what they wanted. And but he didn't use it for mind control. Meanwhile, in this, the Avengers have teamed up with a bunch of super villains in the hopes that that would be something Doom didn't plan for and they could beat him and stop him. It does end after some really interesting twists and turns with the idea that Dormammu is like, oh, Dr. Doom has become the Sorcerer Supreme, but I don't think he knows that it's not just a set of powers, it's a set of responsibilities. And I strongly suspect Dormammu or other supernatural threats will begin attacking, and Dr. Doom may not be prepared for that. But is Dr. Doom really even the villain here? I don't know. Yeah, I was sort of I keep sort of skipping it, but we'll talk about Assorted Crisis events. So people had told me, hey, you're missing out on Assorted Crisis events. So I went back and I got issue 1, and I was like, oh yeah, that was damn cool. It's about a world where time is broken. So things happen in non-linear terms and weird things can happen. This issue did not follow the same character from the first issue. So I was like, oh, I didn't realize that's the kind of book it was. It's following different people and how they relate to this world. This follows a character called Jesus throughout his life, but it's told in nonlinear aspects. So it jumps back and forth to him, like as a kid being smuggled across the Mexico-US border by his parents and getting a job working in a slaughterhouse and having a kid and losing his parents, but it's all out of order. And he has to go through some really traumatic stuff. All I can say is by the very end, you start to finally get a sense of who this guy is and what he's gone through and how that's fashioned him. But he's such a broken guy because he's gone through so many traumatic events. And it sort of helps how they put it out of order. It really lets the artist do some fascinating stuff with how they would relay the passage of time and somebody feeling out of time, feeling like connected to different periods of their past. Like this thing of him falling down at different periods of his life at different ages. And the fact that this artist can represent this character looking like different ages and still be a recognizable character is a tremendous accomplishment. It's very literary. You have to like read this and invest some time. You can't be distracted with other things going on in the background. But I think Eric Zawadzki is a really great artist that I'm glad I'm finding out about. I would say that I like the first issue a little bit more because the first issue was a little more fun. This one's a little like kind of sad and dark. But artistically, this is something. I mean, look at all these different panel layouts or the way that like sometimes things are done in like basically one flat color minus the character to stand out. Like some really fascinating decisions on how to emphasize what's important. Very character focused as compared to being about the plot, some sort of time travel thing. Love it. Love it. Can't decide which one I liked more from last week. ACE. What's ACE? Or Assorted. Oh, Assorted Crisis Events or AMM. Absolute Martian Manhunter. That's it. Absolute Martian Manhunter. Yeah, that's true. There are some parallels to Slaughterhouse-5 in a sense. I don't think it's real life inspired, no. I think coloring does deserve credit. So you know what? I should call that out. Excuse me. Jordi Belair. No surprise there. Jordi Belair always does great stuff. Very good colorist. Not covering up the line art. Lots of flat colors, but decisions on where to sort of color block background elements so that there's no distractions. Really focus on the characters and what's important. In a sense, it almost feels like the character is being pulled out of time because of that. There's some crazy stuff in it too, but I do recommend it if you're looking for a very different experience and what you can do storytelling wise with comics. And I guess the last thing I read this week was the latest Energon Universe G.I. Joe, which just happens to feature Duke versus Cobra Commander. And this Cobra Commander is kind of cool, I have to say. He's ruthless. And he's a little smarter on a technical sense than Cobra Commanders in the past because he can make weapons. He's very good with technology. He's like, turned his hand into a bit of a last-minute weapon. The art in this by Tom Riley is always exciting and cool. This is a Cobra Commander that sacrifices his men if they're not performing to his satisfaction. Pretty ruthless, and he keeps things under control because of his ruthlessness. Anyway, this issue 6, like the end of the first arc, it also does feature a really big crossover element with Transformers. Just like how Void Rivals has started to introduce Transformers into their comics, looks like G.I. Joe will be doing something similar. So yeah, it is connected in a really interesting way, but I loved the decision of which character they decided to connect to G.I. Joe. I really like that a lot. So that was, I guess, all the news and all the comics that I read. I'm trying to think if there was anything else comics related that I came across this week. Um, no, I guess not. Because Daredevil's over. Andor started off real strong. I really like Andor. I really loved the latest episode of Last of Us, but those aren't really comics. Mm. Mm. That's actually pretty good. He is. He's cold like a snake. Let's see. Last issue, before the Joes went into battle, they paid tribute to rock and roll. I like that. It was a big surprise to see them kill off a big character, but it sort of means I don't know for sure which characters are always going to survive, and that's good. After almost 14 years on YouTube, I've reached 500 subscribers. Next stop, world domination. No, congrats on 500. In my experience, if you're putting out regular content, every time you sort of reach a milestone, and the milestones get sort of incrementally bigger, but it seems that YouTube is a little more willing to push your content for the first couple days, the bigger your channel gets. So you sort of like hit certain points where it speeds up a little more. Just my experience. I hope that that's the same. Keep at it. Saw Sinners on Saturday. I think it might be the best movie of its subgenre in many decades. Yeah, I know. It's fantastic. It's so good. I saw that in week 2, the drop was only something like 6%. That's so small, folks. Most movies drop, even if they're doing well, they're going to drop 20 to 30%. And that's considered very good if it only drops 20 to 30%. If it's low budget, you might drop 60% and still be able to recoup your costs. If you're big budget, then that's a disaster. But the word of mouth on Sinners is as strong as any movie I've seen in so many years. And I've been telling everybody to see it. One of my coworkers went to see it over. He was trying to decide between, he wanted to see The Accountant too. I was like, see Sinners. It's better. Sinners is better. See Sinners first. Like, if you want to see Accountant 2, go for it. But see Sinners. And he did. And he was like, Chris, I think that might be my favorite movie of all time. I was like, oh my God, that's saying something. I agree. It's really, really good. So, yeah, I really talk it up. And I think that other people must be too, because that's a very tiny drop for week 2 on a movie like that. What else is sort of comics related? Oh, I guess the big thing would be that this week is Free Comic Book Day. Does anybody have any specific plans to visit a comic shop and see or do anything? I'm going to take off my glasses to look at my art a little better while I look at your comments. So good. It's the most successful movie that's not based on an existing IP in a long time. Yeah, that's what's part of what's cool. Thank you, Kevin. How is Marvel not just hurling money by the handful at Coogler? I mean, they sort of are. Because they're going to get a third Black Panther movie out of M+, like some sort of Wakanda series, which I think is animated, but yeah. Every once in a while you realize that you're lucky that you sort of caught something early. It wasn't even like necessarily your intention, but for instance, I had checked out Fruitvale Station, his first real theatrically released movie, and I really thought it was impressive, so I've stayed with him ever since. Unfortunately, then he did stuff like Creed and Black Panther, which is totally in my wheelhouse. So yeah, there's certain directors that are newer that it's nice to see that there are still some sort of what I'll call auteurs out there, people that develop their own material. Some of them might be getting a little older now, like Alex Garland or Christopher Nolan and stuff, but those are guys that mostly will develop their own material. And then when they do something for a studio, based on something, it's at least sort of developed through them to be the kind of thing that they want to take or develop, tell a story on. I don't know what I'm trying to say, I guess. Maybe I got there. That's right. He was doing something with X-Files. I'm curious what happens with that. I would like to see an X-Files reboot just because X-Files I liked a lot, but it did get kind of muddy as it went on because they didn't really have a plan. And I think now if you went back with the hindsight of what it can do well, you could have more of a plan and it could be done well. What crossover comic book idea seems obvious to you but has yet to happen? The first one I always think of when people ask me this is definitely Daredevil, Ninja Turtles. I mean, they're just the Ninja Turtles were based in large part off of what was going on successfully with Daredevil at that time, the Frank Miller stuff, and it was even satirizing it. But I think that they've just got a lot in common, and that would work really, really well. So we'll see. Maybe someday. What else would work really, really well? There's a bunch of different superheroes at Image that, Image hasn't really done anything crossover wise with Marvel or DC in quite a while, but that could be a lot of fun. There was a time in the 90s when it happened a bunch. X-Files, X-Men. Yeah. Actually, dealing with mutants, that could be fun. I heard Gillian Anderson was mad they went back to the kid again. She wants Scully to do monster stuff and not be obsessed with him all the time. I wouldn't blame her. It was, if you wanted to end the whole series with them getting together, that was fine. But it really kind of threw up some weird storytelling roadblocks when they tried to bring it back. Yeah, we talked about that a little at the beginning. I was definitely surprised to see that, and no spoiler from me, hopefully not in the chat either, but Predator Badlands explicitly crosses over with something else, which I thought was interesting. Talked about that in the news, yes. Ghost World and Transformers. I love it. Lightbringer in the MCU? Hey, if you're saying like let Linkara go nuts with MCU stuff, I say go for it. Let's see what he can do. He deserves a shot at a comic. Dexter and Batman. Oh, Dexter, the serial killer show? Interesting idea. Godzilla versus Predators. I don't know. Mad Max Last Mermaid. My money's on the mermaid. X-Files, Something is Killing the Children. Yeah, that could definitely work. Damn, I mean, yeah, the stuff out of Something is Killing the Children does actually seem like a case of the week that Mulder and Scully would investigate, for sure. Berserk and Diablo 2, you're going to have to settle for Berserk and Diablo 4. Zorro and Blueberry. Lieutenant Blueberry. Yeah. Yeah. Powerpuff Girls and Ninja Turtles? I don't know Powerpuff Girls very well to know if that would work or not, but I'll take your word. Hello. Let's see. Almost 7 o'clock. Adventure Time and Runaways. Well, they have done a little time travel stuff, so maybe they could. If I can't think of a clue that doesn't just give it away, I'll just say, if you watch the trailer, look at the spaceship wreckage and look very closely at the eyes of the lead character, and you'll figure it out pretty easily. But I don't know how to say it without just giving it away. Dum, 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 bum, 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 bum. Vanessa, will you watch Godzilla with me tonight? I hear it's quite good. I amused myself earlier tonight with that impression of Kingpin talk using the lyrics of My Chemical Romance. Venture Brothers doing a crossover with anything could be fun. That would be cool. Yojimbo meets Man with No Name. I can't hear the Godzilla horns without thinking of Samoa Joe. I haven't seen Samoa Joe wrestling, so I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but thank you. Aliens versus Daleks. I'd give it to the Daleks. Interesting idea. Vanessa, do you prefer Daleks or Cybermen? They're both very interesting, have tremendous advantages. Advantages that I could use against a certain annoying lawyer in Hell's Kitchen. Let's see. Did you talk about the rumor that the Blade movie is dead? I think we talked about that a few weeks ago. Yeah, I kind of think it is. It's too bad because it should not have been a hard movie to develop properly. That feels like it should have been more of a slam dunk because to me, I go, there are certain characters that Marvel should be developing as movies that don't all have to be Spider-Man or Avengers level, effects and such. For instance, you could do Daredevil with a smaller budget. You focus on the courtroom and the street fighting. Shang-Chi, just like get some badass martial arts and tone down some of the special effects stuff in the sequel. I'm serious. It doesn't have to be bigger. Just give us really good fights. And Blade is again, just do some good practical effects for some vampire makeup. And it might get to some sort of blood god or something by the end, and then that's okay. But just focus on some good action choreography, and that shouldn't cost nearly as much as like big special effectsy stuff. I think Marvel should definitely, have at least 2 tiers of budgets for like their movies. One, Thor or Guardians of the Galaxy, yeah, you're going to be spending a lot of money on making that world real. But there's plenty of characters that are a little more down to earth, like, a Moon Knight or something, where you don't have to go as effects heavy. And they should factor that in and go, here's what the budget is. What can you do with that that's still effective? Let's get a great actor, great director, and do something creative. Grendel versus the Shadow. Daleks versus Terminators. I still would give it to the Daleks. Doctor Strange enters the Matrix. The Avengers versus COVID. You'd think Tony Stark could fix that one. I think I'll call it a night here, folks. We've done a lot. We talked about a lot of books. Oh, you know what I never did? Jeez, what am I thinking? I always try to pick a book of the week out of what I've read. And this week, it's no question that it is not Hush 2. I think that the books I enjoyed this week the most would include Redcoat, but that came out last week, just to be clear. It would include G.I. Joe, but I'm just a G.I. Joe nut. Hey, could you tell that I like G.I. Joe? And, I think that ultimately the two that I enjoyed the most this week out of what was new was Absolute Wonder Woman and Assorted Crisis events. And the satisfying thing about both of these is they actually tell a pretty complete story in each issue. There's good art, there's good storytelling. This one probably experiments a little bit more with what you can do storytelling wise in a comic. And has a lot of incredible collaboration. But I would say that in terms of satisfying, I'm going to give the edge to Absolute Wonder Woman just because it tells us something very important about the character and it gives it to us in a very satisfying one and done story. So Absolute Wonder Woman number 7 is my pick for book of the week. But in terms of what do I recommend, I, no question, wholeheartedly also recommend Assorted Crisis Events Issue 2. And I strongly recommend something that's new to me, but a lot of you already know about it, but still, Bitter Root. Wow. What a discovery. Really something special. Really something special. So I'll probably be behind for a while because I know they're still doing issues of this, like spin-offs or miniseries. I don't know exactly, but it'll take me a while to get caught up, but I will say that I really do recommend that. But my pick for book of the week was Wonder Woman issue 7, and I don't say that lightly. It was a really, really cool story, very satisfying. I hope you'll check out tomorrow's episode of Trash Movie Bonanza. Jim and I and Jamie had fun putting that together. It's talking a lot about special effects, to be honest. That's a big focus on it. But there's other elements too. And I'm really proud so far of how my episode of Comic Tropes is coming out. That will be out probably early to middle of this coming week. So I still have a few more days to work on the editing. It's taken a while. And I feel terrible about this, but the pain in my shoulder is such that, when I keep my arm slightly raised here on my desk and, working the mouse, it even just like imitating that right now or doing this show, it's very painful right now. And it's probably only going to get worse for a few months before it gets better if it repeats what I had last time. Like frozen shoulder is something that takes about 1.5 to 2 years to work through, unfortunately. It's really bad, and I hope none of you ever get it. It's just something some people develop where the sort of capsules around the joints in your shoulder thicken and harden for a while, and it just sort of locks your shoulder into place so that, like, you don't have as much flexibility, and when you do move it, it's very painful. Like right now, every day I'm pounding ibuprofen. It's not great. It's not great. Trackball? I'll look into whatever that is, Mike. I have to admit, that's something I thought that was like a type of a mouse, isn't it? Is it something that I don't have to have on the desk, like I could have in my lap? And the only reason I even bring that up isn't really for like sympathy, like, oh, you poor thing. I'm just saying that it is physically slowing down the editing process, unfortunately. And even when I go to do my job at work, if I had to like type on a computer all day or something, I'd be cooked. Like I have to get up and move around. Fortunately, I still have pretty good flexibility. You can see I can like raise this arm more. I can't quite do that with and even that hurts. But that's still a pretty good range of motion that I have right now. It just hurts a lot, and it'll get worse. I feel it getting worse over the last 2 months. No, really? Lard Park Lincoln passed away? That was the girl from Friday the 13th 8 or 7? 7, right? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Friday the 13th, part 7, The New Blood. Oh, that's too bad. Huh. I hadn't heard about that. Let's see. I've got some advice. Ginger, lemon, pepper, 2-ounce shot, boost that circulation. Well, it can't hurt. I could try that. I could try that. But I don't think it really has to do with circulation. I have been, since I had this before, I have been doing shoulder exercises. I have actually been, like, the biggest thing you can do is stretch, and then like some like lifting of lightweight. So I am doing some of that. You know, maybe it's okay. Yeah, inflammation is a problem with this. So curcumin is really good for things caused by inflammation. Piperine boosts the effectiveness. Okay, I'll try to remember that, because the inflammation is definitely the more painful element. No, I didn't hear about that. I didn't even know that they were re-releasing the Star Wars. And my friend and I went to see a movie a couple nights ago. We saw Until Dawn, which is so much gorier than I almost hoped for out of a cheesy horror movie. We had a good time. And all of these people were cosplaying as Sith, and I go, oh, there must be a Star Wars re-release. It had totally missed me. I think I'd like to rewatch all the Star Wars movies. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I like, that would be bad. It would literally be bad for me to try to lift things. In fact, at work, like, sometimes I have to say help refill paper or water bottles in like a fridge that we have for customers. And I've said, like, I can do these tasks, but it's going to take me a minute more, because I'm going to have to sort of like stack it on like a chair or something and push it around. I can't just easily right now lift it up and rely on this shoulder. I just can't. It's frustrating. I feel like so not myself. I would say that's true. I didn't even realize until I finished. I was like, oh, I played that game. It's not the same story. It's inspired, but it's not the same. It's not the same. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, just sort of muttering about all sorts of stuff. I just wanted to explain that it's taken me a little longer than I wish it would on some of these things. Is there anything else? I'm just like looking around to see like recent comics and art and stuff, if there was anything else to talk about. But I don't think so. Yeah, just keep an eye on this channel tomorrow, and then on Comic Tropes. If I'm lucky, as early as like Wednesday, but maybe Thursday or something. I don't know, somewhere around there. So going to work on it. And everybody, just keep reading comics. Look, I can still give you a double salute. So I will. I appreciate y'all being here, whether you're watching live or once this is archived. I'm going to go add some time codes to the saved version of this, and I will see you next week. Hope you find some good comics until then. Yes, keep reading comics. Take care.